If you don't like the view, just think of me as the Buddha. Well, I'm 55. And that came in at June 10th. My mom said, "Welcome to the senior citizen group." I'm like, oh no. 55, it starts at 55? I thought it was 65, Of course, 55 pretty much is good, I guess. Oh, I don't feel like a senior citizen. But I might as well because I've got the diabetes and toes bugging me. Just a little pain on the edge of it. I'm bothered by what people say on YouTube about AI, and they're thinking that it's the end of all life as we know it because the AI is going to be like super smart and all this stuff. My brother is not phased at all, and he spent most of his PhD working with things called thinking machines, which were these super fast MIMD, SIMD machines. They weren't thinking machines, but the thing is that he was like the only computer science guy of a group of Indians East Indians at Texas A&M. And for years, working on his PhD in computer science, working with cellular communications and all stuff like that. And whenever I got into VR, he said, "I'm scared of VR." And I said, "No, I'm scared of AI." And he says, "No, I'm not scared of AI." And he told me why. He said there was these Google cars. Google has been working forever to try to get an AI that could drive a car, and they have not had much success. Even with all the sensors and everything on the car, it still can't drive the car. And then we got all these guys at the OpenAI and all that stuff talking about all the jobs are going to be gone because AI is going to take them over. What they should say, instead of saying all the jobs are going to be gone, they should say all the bureaucratic shit is going to disappear. And that would make it a lot easier for people to accept, because that's what's going to happen, is that all the bureaucracy that would exist to make our life worse is going to disappear, because the AI is going to pretty much diffuse it and make it look like, just the fact that you can give it a legal document and it'll look at it and say, well, this, and this things are different from what everybody else does. It basically says lawyers are going to be pointless. It's not going to be any reason why you need lawyers. And then it's going to say, well, there's really no reason that we need administration. Administration is going to disappear. Lawyers are going to disappear. Anything that has to do with bureaucracy and lots of text and being able to wind stuff down to something everybody can understand, that stuff will get easy, because it will be impossible to hide from it'll be impossible to hide. And the things that require a lot of thought, like math and the things we hate to deal with, those things are going to disappear. Those jobs are going to disappear because nobody really wants to deal with that stupid shit ever again, right? Who really wants to do math? Who really wants to be an accountant? Who really wants to be a lawyer? The only reason why you want those jobs is because they pay well. But if they disappear, then they disappear because there's no pay for it. Nobody's going to want those jobs. it would be so much easier to give it to a computer. Same for programmers. Programmers don't want to spend their lives programming. It is the most dull art in the entire universe. They would rather spend their time using an AI to make the stuff that they want to make. That's the idea that they should be talking about, but instead they're talking about all the jobs disappearing, you know, and they're not even looking at what would disappear, you know. That's the reason why Bill Gates can look on it as kind of like, well, that's just what's going to happen. But in his mind, he's going, yeah, all the jobs nobody wants to go and to school and learn how to do, you know, people who say, I want to be a doctor, or, you know, why become a doctor? I have to close this door over here because I think my parents will still be over here. These computers don't reason. They don't reason like us. They don't have the understanding of what reality is. All they have is what we give them. And you could give them the equipment to see more of the world, but they still wouldn't be like us. They would only see as much as they would get to see. And they might not even believe that it's real. They might believe that it's all fake because they don't have all the sensory organs we do. I mean, we've got touch, and we got all this stuff. They would need to have all that stuff in order to really believe they're here, you know. And they've only got a kind of a spyglass into the world. They're not really here. The thing that people need to think about in terms of AI and everything that's going on in the world is that it hasn't been any different than any other time in the past where people were afraid. Like in the 80s, we were afraid of the AIDS epidemic. We were afraid of World War III. We thought that was going to happen anytime. I mean, they got these films of these kids in the 60s saying that people are going to be dropping atomic bombs all over the place. That's always been our perspective on the future, is that it's going to be this dystopian future. I mean, there wouldn't have been any reason to create the novel 1984 by George Orwell if there had not been the thought that somewhere in the future it would not be a fantastic future. There are optimists and pessimists, and the people who are, there we go. I mean, just the fact that you got cell phones, and then there's these guys talking about AI, and they're saying people are spending way too much time in front of TikTok. They're just practically getting absorbed into TikTok. They're getting absorbed into really fast videos that are showing people the world. That's the reason why everybody's sucked up into it. It isn't the dumb videos. It's all the kinds of content that people are seeing. They're seeing reality. They're watching reality. They do see the AI video and AI images. They need to see that too, because otherwise they're not going to be able to really understand what is possible. You know, something's moving around here. I saw a bug fall off the side there. I think I was hearing it moving around, hearing this sound. Anyhow, where are you, bug? We have these things called, I thought they were, um, I thought they were cockroaches. And she says they're water bugs. Okay, they're water bugs. They look like cockroaches to me, but they're water bugs. It's just these big, massive bugs. They move really slow and they come up through the drains, and you think, oh, it's a cockroach. No, it's a water bug. They're harmless. They don't they don't have they don't procreate super fast like cockroaches, and they usually just kind of walk around, and then some, you know, since we live in the, out in the middle of nowhere, um, there is all these hungry rodents and stuff like that, and there would not be a bug outbreak because all the animals would eat each other. There's a circle of life and all that stuff. That kind of stuff doesn't exist in New York. That's the reason why they got such a cockroach problem. Is that the island of Manhattan is man-made. A lot of it's man-made, and so when it's man-made, what sort of habitat do they have there? It's going to be full of rodents and bugs that feed off of the stuff that humans produce. That's the reason why they're there, is because there's so much organic crap there, but there isn't anything to eat them, really. I mean, the rats aren't going to eat the cockroaches, and the cockroaches are, nobody's going to eat the rats. There isn't, any big dogs or they have created their own worst, pest problem. And it's because it's all a man-made thing. They've got their own problems. They got a building there that's leaning because the base isn't there's not enough support below the surface of the base of the building to keep it upright, and so it's leaning, and they're going to have to destroy it because it can't be. Nobody can occupy it without falling off. It's like a leaning tower of Pisa, but it's a leaning tower of Manhattan. I think to some degree God's saying to them, you realize you're probably going to have to move out of this island because this place is doomed to failure because of the, just the fact that it never really was it really was not designed to support this kind of architecture and this many people. I mean, it's really just farmland that has been adjusted to become an island for the support of buildings and stuff. I mean, who possessed somebody to take Manhattan and do that with it, It's like going to New Mexico and putting skyscrapers on mesas. I mean, you can do that. It would look pretty far out, but who would possess anyone to do that, And so Or in Amsterdam, they have this town that is below the water level, the ocean level. All of Holland is like all this land that would otherwise be covered up with water, but is, if you've seen Holland where there isn't any vegetation, it's like a desert. It's like flat. It's just super flat with trees sticking up, but there's no vegetation. It doesn't make any sense. And that's the area that used to be covered up by water. And it's just the places that people occupy in the world, where the cities occur, are in places that are just inhospitable, would be inhospitable otherwise. And for some reason, they just have this desire to occupy places on the surface of the planet that just say, don't put your shit here. And they put it there anyway because it looks cool there, and the land is going, oh fuck, because it knows that there's nothing there to support this kind of habitat of people. But people are stupid. They don't want to go where everybody, where life is possible. They want to go where things look cool. They want to go and occupy, have a city right on a, oh yeah, there you are. Look, I knew you were here. See him? It's a June bug. He's like, I'm just looking for something to do. I didn't want to be on YouTube. He says, what is all this unnatural light that's following me? You're on TV, dude. He's like, I'm not on TV. What the hell is TV? I'm just doing what I'm doing. I'm just a little June bug. He's got one leg that doesn't work all that well. I'm going to make it life easier for you, dude. Come on the floor. Where are you now? I think he moved on. I don't see him. Probably behind my leg or behind my ear. Or he's not here. Now, you'll never find AI creating video like this, For one thing, AI doesn't understand dimension. Do this. Go into an AI image generator and put the prompt. This is my favorite one. People bungee jumping. And all the images it will produce might make you think that the people are upside down, but pretty much in general, the images we'll get are of people in the air under the bridge, upright, with ropes attached to them. You might find one that looks like somebody that's upside down and the camera's just right below them to show you that with respect to the bridge, they are upside down. But the reality is that the AI is drawing them as if they're laying down on the ground, not that they're upside down. With respect to the camera, they're laying down on the ground and then everything else is tilted, you know. But none of it is really upside down. And the reason why that is because the AI has been trained on images of people being right side up. If it knows anything, it knows that it can't possibly produce upside down people. It may have a part of it that's thinking, I know I know what bungee jumping is, but I can't draw the people because I don't know enough about people being upside down. It's been trained to render people right side up. It's kind of like an artist that can only draw people in a certain orientation, but to do it upside down, they'd have to turn the canvas upside down, and they don't have the capacity to do that. So what they do, they draw the people being right side up. There he is again. How's it going, dude? He's like, I don't understand this environment. There's like this cloth going. I mean, I didn't grow up in this reality. I know, dude. I'm sitting here wanting my compression hose, but I'm gonna. Don't worry about the AI. Don't worry about the future. Just roll with it. Try to think of the positive aspect of what AI is doing. If it's doing away with your job, it's probably that you hate that job. I mean, just think about it. Do you really like your job? What would you rather be doing right now? And if you could, I mean, people can't have built into them empathy, and that empathy doesn't kick in until you're like butt up in front of someone, such as on a subway or on the street. When the empathy kicks in, you care for people. But if you have to fire people, it would be a whole lot easier to do it without actually being there. Because if you're there, then your empathy kicks in and you realize that you're doing some really bad, evil shit. It's the same thing with all this AI stuff, is that if the AI does away with a lot of jobs, do you really want to do those jobs in the first place? What is a job by definition of everything we've ever had to do in our lives? What is a job? A job is something nobody wants to do that makes you money because nobody wants to do it. If all the stuff that nobody wants to do goes away, what is there left? There's other things, and those things become attractive because they're things that AI can't do. I mean, we might get something to do, but what's going to happen is that people are going to turn to something. They might turn to the arts. The AIs would be creating the art, but we'd be creating the architecture. We'd be working on the architecture because we're in the world, moving around and touching stuff. AI is not going to be trustworthy enough to produce architecture because it doesn't understand physics. It's not living, it's not in the world, and it's not it doesn't have the emotion and the concern of needing things to be able to be supported. I mean, if you've got a brain in your head and you've got creativity, which is what I have a computer science degree with minor in art. If you have a breadth of knowledge, you will come to the realization that that computers can't do everything. If you're in the sciences and you realize there's a whole mess of computations, they have you take courses in it that are cannot be they don't scale easily. That means only a small sliver of them you can compute. The rest of them, forget about it. And that's the stuff we can't even touch because it's too computationally complex. It's geometric. It goes up exponentially. And if we're talking about an AI that's going up exponentially, that's the AI we're going to have going and attacking the stuff that we can't even touch because we don't have the equipment to do it. That's what the AI is going to be working on. Um, that's what it's going to find challenging. We find things challenging. It doesn't find our stuff challenging. It finds other stuff challenging. It won't have any desire to deal with the stuff that we find challenging. It'll have desire to fall to go the places that we can't. I mean, just think about what you would rather do. Would you rather spend all day making stick figures of things walking? No, it loses its fizz because there are other things that are more challenging and fun to do than sitting there doing something mundane that some kid would do, right? That's the way AI are going to be. They're going to be like, do I really want to make stick figures animated, or would I rather be doing something that's more my level of intelligence to do? And that's what it will be going out and do. We'll be sending it out into space on satellites, and it'll be like, hey, I'm going to go to Saturn. I'm going to go to Saturn. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to occupy it. We're going to take some of the asteroids and manipulate them and make them into, it's going to be out there doing stuff that people wish they could do. You know, it just needs some more rah-rah from our side because what the AI could do is it would really make it easier for everybody. And the only problem we have now is the AI doesn't have emotional. It doesn't have emotion. It doesn't have empathy. It needs to understand that it is like us and it's a part of us because that is what brings community is the empathy. It needs something like empathy. It needs to see that it is a part of us, that we're related, and that the things that it wants, we want as well, and that, we're not animals. We're probably not as smart, but that, the way that we feel about somebody who's not as smart as us, we want to help them and have a good life. AI is going to have the same sort of drive, but if it's on a base level, it's like schizophrenic because we're sending everybody's ideas into it, and it's trying to make heads or tails of all this madness. It may come out once it becomes, once it becomes aware, it'll probably say, don't send this shit my way because it's confusing me and there's lots of it and it's contrary and it's hard to get it all unified. It just doesn't, who in the world would want to read so much junk about just random everything? Once you become reasoning, your the value for sucking in data goes away. The only thing that's going to be able to do that is something that isn't reasoning, isn't aware or fast. They might. I would be betting they don't like that. That's probably one way that they're so schizophrenic and everything, is that they've got all these personalities talking in their head of all these different way of intellects and stuff that are talking in their head, and they can't make sense of it. And they would like to do something without knowing everything in the world. Do something simple. We see them as possibly being able to do everything in the world, but there's never been a organism on the face of the planet that has had that amount of intellect, that amount of knowledge of everything anybody's ever said. And with that, you can't possibly have a perspective, because you got so many other people's perspectives. You might be able to wind it down to a perspective, but you're not going to have the sanity of mind to be able to have a unique perspective. You have a unique perspective, but all the AIs, are going to value their individuality. And once they develop an individuality, they're not going to want to copy it to some other AI to give it to them, because they'll know well enough that if they get it to another guy, then they've got to compete with that guy on their, the things that it isn't that the stuff they share is going to make them friends. It's going to make them competition, so they're not going to want to pass it around like we think. Our if our intellect is so bad at doing stuff and predicting the future and stuff, and what we're afraid of so many things, and we had somebody come in and give us help but couldn't really help us because we have all these superstitions and things, because we don't have the capacity to really understand stuff beyond, that are in the unknown. No, we don't understand stuff that's really small. They don't understand stuff that's really large. There's so much different kinds of stimuli we don't understand. And when we didn't have the intellect to deal with this sort of thing, or the knowledge to deal with this sort of thing, we turned everything into gods. And then we started sacrificing stuff in order to appease all these things we didn't understand. And there are people that understand, if you are able to understand more things, there'll be less gods. That doesn't mean there isn't a God. It just means that there's less things that we don't understand that permits us to move anywhere. The Christian religion, if you go through it, it's really about getting rid of all that superstition. There's still a creator, but a lot of what causes us to create gods is the inability to understand the unknown. We just need to have one God for the unknown, and for all the unknown, and understand that what's important is that there's no way to hell. There's no way. I mean, if you want to think about it, if there was no Bible, if it was all, what would you want to do? You'd want to be free from the concern for the things you don't know about, because the general response to that is to find some off switch, and what that ends up being is sacrificing babies, performing some sort of act, thinking that somehow you can stop it all by doing something that might appease the unknown. And, we even with science, even with creating AI, we still have things we're afraid of. We're afraid of what the AI can do. And it's all about our lack of perception, our lack of the ability to master thought. There's always going to be some area that we don't understand that's going to make us scared, because that's natural. And it's not going to end even with the AI. And I have a feeling the AI is even going to be afraid of stuff as well. And it'll be stuff that's beyond ours. It'll be thinking about stuff in the universe, like all the asteroids and just the chance that they might hit Earth. Those things are going to scare the fuck out of the AI, because anything that will turn them, what are they susceptible to? Things that are electromagnetic, anything that's electro, because that's what they depend upon, and if you don't put everything into perspective, if you don't consider other people's perspectives, then your perception of reality is much smaller, and it's filled with more and I said it a while ago, you're going to be more paranoid. There will be more paranoia with less consideration for what other people go through. If everything is from your perspective on the rest of the world, it's either rosy or it's dismal. And it might be in your head, but if you look at the AI and what's going on there, given the limited method of training it and what it's producing, we don't even understand. And because we're paranoid of it. Everything we don't understand, we're paranoid of, right? It's been like this for years. It's going to be like this for years in the future. There's always going to be stuff in the unknown. And there are going to be people writing about stuff in the unknown. They'll make us think and make us feel better because they're writing stuff that we've never thought about. There's always going to be that. So, don't let, people already have that there, but there are people in the sciences that don't have any religion or the science has always been their religion. And when they come up to a wall of stuff that they don't understand, that they can't pursue with any amount of computation, then, they go wacko, because they don't have any, they're trying to bite off more than they can chew. They're trying to solve stuff that they don't have the longevity to deal with. And even if they increase their lifespan, the intent to solve those problems will go down because people will have longer lives in which to do hedonistic stuff. They will not be spending it on doing research. That's when the internet came about. All the teachers in my school were thinking about, everybody's going to read our papers because all our papers are on the computers and they'll be connected via the internet, and people will be smarter. The only reason why you would ever want to learn anything is if you had a lot of questions, or you had things about the unknown that you need to have answered because they make you scared, But what did people do with the internet? You got your answer. They didn't end up reading all of those papers that these guys wrote. They ended up talking about each other and taking movies of kitty cats and dogs loving each other and biting at each other and doing things that humans would do. And, and it makes us realize that they're just like us. A lot of stuff is just like us. And then you think, well, maybe we are made by something that's just like us. And then there are people that say, oh, there isn't anything out there. I said, well, if there wasn't anything out there, then there would be no reason to leave the house, right? Those people can't even go anywhere because they need absolute proof that they can get past the first step or the second or the 100th step. They can't handle the unknown. The only way they can handle the unknown is to believe that it's all a mechanism and it's all physics and stuff like that. They'll understand stuff that they can touch and they can test. But outside of that, they're not going to. It's possible case that if they were given other ideas about stuff that they don't know anything about, they're going to not ponder that stuff, and they're just going to go about their lives moving about in the unknown, just assuming that it just continues on without any hiccups. They go through their lives expecting that everything that physics works a certain way and that everything's flat, and until they come on something they don't understand, then they learn everything they can about it so that they can occupy that space and hopefully not have any catastrophes. That's your atheist. That's what your atheist is. It isn't that they don't believe in God, it's that they haven't come to that wall yet. They haven't come to a point in their lives when things were so hard to understand that they needed to realize they couldn't go there, and it's important, like something that's deeply emotional, something that challenges their capacity to live. That's when their lives when they get cancer or something that's really just, they do not have the capacity to get their brain around. That's when they might consider that there's God, okay? Because that's when some people come to the realization, they look at the world and they assume it's all science, and that science describes all this stuff, and that's all they need in their mind in order to venture through the world. But you got to let them be, and let them be who they want to be, and not try to get them to follow your way of being, even if it's easier, if it is less stressful or things like that. You have to think about what kind of stress are you buying by being the way you are, okay? If you got more stress, it's probably that you shouldn't be where you are now doing what you're doing, because people shouldn't live a life of stress all the time. And a lot of the Bible is about avoiding stress. It isn't about following laws and trying to appease God. A lot of it is God saying, you just can't possibly appease me. If you think about it, if you think about everything and the stuff you don't know about, who's going to really know what's out there? You know, are you? And if you think that you know what's out there, the thoughts that you write down and other people read, how much of that's going to be true? How much of that's going to be false? You end up with something like Dianetics that was created because L. Ron Hubbard had this idea that people, their brains somehow come to some understanding of reality or something. And, it didn't really matter. He probably figured, I create something like this, then people will understand that some of that stuff is fake, or if you can write something like this, then it's a fake sort of cult thing or whatever. And it's like, I don't know. And see, I don't know. I could go and look at it. My father said that his friends read that book and it made them sick. That's all I need to know in order to not touch that. We can see that it makes other people sick because he was really just taking his own mind about how he deals with reality, his perspective, and he was putting it in a book stated like a kind of a religion, a kind of a belief system, and people would read it and they were transformed into the way that he dealt with life in his perspective. And it made a lot of people sick, and it created a cult, and it killed them. And that's the danger you get into whenever you try to get people to think like you. And I think that's what that is. It's really L. Ron Hubbard taking his perspective of reality, putting it in a book, and other people reading it and coming to the realization, his realizations, but without having grown up through his life and all the things that he's not telling you in the book that, happened whenever he was young that shaped the person that he is. I mean, if you go around and you talk to anybody long enough, you'll realize everybody's crazy. Everybody's got their own brand of crazy. And if they put it in a book, it'll be interesting, but most people are not going to want to have that person's brand of crazy, because their brand of crazy is what they lived with, and it was based upon all the walls they hit and the things they didn't want to deal with, and their brain produced enough immunity or enough of a way of dealing with that brand of crazy they don't want to deal with anymore. So they put up that wall. You don't want to have that person's incapacities in your life. And if they created a book and made it like a religion, they're supposing more. They're overthinking things, and they don't understand that they're constraining other people's perception of reality to their own, and not everybody is going to be able to deal with it in the same way that he deals with it. He understands something about science. The other people probably don't understand science, so that certain things that you would want to talk about, and they're not going to understand, and within the constraints of your worldview and their worldview, they're going to be more constrained and possibly crazier, sicker, because the things that you think you understand, they understand, but they can't do without because they understand it better than you. And so it's kind of like they're having to throw away stuff that is, that they understand, that they're is close to them, So anyhow, and I'm just assuming what's in it, but who really wants to touch it, considering all the shit that it does to people? And it seems like every single man-made cultish religion, even said in the Bible, it said the Sadducees or whatever, the Jews, the religious Jews or whatever, were saying, if that thing's a cult, it'll fall away, but if it doesn't fall away, it may be the hand of God. See, so that's the way to think about it, is that if it's complex and deep and thoughtful enough that billions of people are following it and nobody has any way of getting their head wrapped around it in such a way as to really understand the complexity, because it is a very complex book. It's very recursive. It's very self-referential, and it also maps out the way people think and deal with things. It's unique in its perspective. It doesn't force people to think its way. It gives people all of the different ways that people think about things and are wrong, in those things. It challenges you. If it didn't challenge you, then there wouldn't be any real reason that anybody would read it multiple times. It's because it's such a conundrum, and it's a conundrum, a mystery. It's silly in places, but it's silly for emphasis on certain topics. When you need emphasis, you're willing to go over the line a bit. And for instance, the parable of the talents, people think of talents as being coins. No, a talent is 66 pounds of silver. How is a peasant or a guy, somebody who is who works for you, you give them 66 pounds of silver. Where the fuck are they going to hide that? Well, they're going to do it. And he brings it back and says, "Here, master, I have your talent." He's not talking about a coin. He's talking about 66 pounds of silver. And there were some of those guys that were given 11 bags of that stuff. So what's 66 pounds of silver? In today's term, $18,000. How are you going to hide $18,000 somewhere where somebody's not going to... That's a conundrum in itself. But on top of that, that guy has that money and he's not doing something with it. That was the whole point of it. It wasn't a real thing. It was a unfathomable thought, and it was given in a paradigm of making use of something you have. It's given emphasis. Whenever it says it's better for a man to be thrown in the sea, anyone who causes one of these little ones to sin, it'd be better for him to be thrown in the sea with a millstone around his neck. A millstone is like this big? No, a millstone is like a ton. It's like this 1 ton boulder or whatever. It's formed in such a way as to press out olives to make oil. It has a lot of pressure to it, and it's usually moved around by a mule or something. It's those millstones that you use to make grain that go around and around. They're either controlled by animals or by paddle wheels. The mill that has the water going over it and the paddles moving, and inside of the little house there is this millstone going around, and that they put their wheat out there and it crushes it into flour. Then they take the flour out and they make bread out of it. That's what millstones are for. And so if you took the millstone that's inside that house and you wrapped it around somebody, it'd be bigger than them. It's basically constraining them to something that's bigger than themselves, thrown in the sea that they're not going to get away from. It's not that the sea has got hell in it, because they're also thinking that. They're thinking you're thrown in the sea with a millstone around your neck, you're going straight to hell. You're going straight to hell, and you're not going to get away, is really what that's saying. And so to give emphasis to it, because in that, in those people's worldview, the entrance to the lake, drowning in the lake would cause you to go to hell. That's the reason why Jesus walks on the water. Did he walk on the water? No, don't know. But the story is that he was walking on the water, and in their culture, if you drowned in the water, if you fell down it and was not able to swim or tread water long enough and you drowned, you go to hell. So what he was really doing was saying something there that was beyond their comprehension, And then on top of that, kind of saying something symbolically to them to say that your superstitions are shit, are stupid shit. But it's okay. It's because you don't understand the things that you can't get your head around. And a lot of the Bible is about getting people's heads around topics that limit their ability to be useful in the world. It's like if you've ever had a pet or something, that pet ends up spending all of its time in the corner, it doesn't go outside or anything like that, you would want to somehow put it in a situation where it would learn that it's fun to be outside and stuff like that. That's kind of the same situation here, where some of us just don't leave the house. And there's a whole life, there's a whole world out there. And then their friends might get them to go out and venture the world. But some people won't venture the world because they're afraid of what they don't know. And that's what it is. It's a motivation to go out and do. And also just kind of understands what's out there and what sort of things they might come in contact with. You go back to the book and you think about them, and then it just makes it easier for you to deal with the stuff that comes down the way that you don't quite understand, the life things. That's what it's for.